Hey.
Yay.
Mhm.
All right, guys. So we are ready to go. This is Prairie Circle Chat. Today we're talking about something that's really important to us personally, but also professionally, and want to make sure that you guys have all the knowledge out there as well. So our topic today is, what is the LTA, the Lymphedema Treatment Act, and what does that mean to you? And this is for our customers, but also our fellow medical professionals, things like that. So we'll be answering a few questions. If you have questions, please put them in chat, and we'll definitely answer them to the best of our ability. And we'll also make sure that you have our contact information moving forward. So with that, we'll do quick introductions. I'm Holli Markwald, CEO here at Prairie. We make versatile, sustainable compression bras. And today with us, we have Joshua and Pam, two of my favorite humans who have such amazing knowledge and even bigger hearts, folks. So I just want to say that these are two very caring, intelligent humans that we get to learn from today. So no pressure on introducing yourselves after
Right.
that lead in. But Pam, could you introduce yourself and then we'll hear from Joshua?
Sure. I'm Pam Ludwig, and I'm the founder of Pretty in Pink Boutique in Nashville, Tennessee. We're a breast cancer and compression dealer. And about a little over a year ago, we also launched a parallel company called Compression Care. We are a third-party biller for the entire country for compression garments of any kind. And we work directly with therapists to order and bill their compression garments for their patients. And we sell a lot of Prairie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I'm Joshua Perkins. I'm the COO of Compression Care. Pam asked me to join this wild venture, and I'm very excited to be here. And I appreciate Holly for bringing me on. But what I do is I control the outreach for therapists and just handle the day to day, what's going on, how are we updating our systems to make sure that we are doing what we are supposed to do for the LTA. And for that, I bounce all of our billing off of Pam. But we try to keep the we try to keep the processes running smoothly so that our therapists get timely answers and get communicated with.
Mhm. And I will say today, folks, for those of you who were hoping we might talk about insurance, we are not. It is still an unfolding, everyday new information, even calling your jurisdiction. If you talk to a different person on a different day, you might get a different answer. That's with PDEC and with CMS. So we're going to step away from insurance questions. We will have some links for information, but more specifically for everyone, let's start with the basic, which is, Pam, what is the Lymphedema Treatment Act?
The Lymphedema Treatment Act is a bill that was passed in Congress in December of 22, went into effect January 1 of 24. So it's actually a result of a very large grassroots mobilization to get compression garments covered by Medicare for the diagnosis of lymphedema. And that process took actually about 13 years. So while it did take a long time, it's still quite a testament to the fact that, grassroots mobilization does work, because this literally was started by a mom whose own child has lymphedema, and her insurance denied compression garments, and she set about to change that. So it's been a long time coming, and I think what happened was the law got passed, and then Medicare, I'm not going to say wasn't ready, but really didn't have, a year's really not a lot of time to create an entirely new product category, list out new product codes, then assign allowables to those codes, and then set forth the policy, the billing guidelines for those codes, like who is eligible to receive these products. So it's just been a real kind of chaotic year, certainly very chaotic this year, just trying to figure out best practices on how to build these codes. Are they going to be covered? A lot of, it took some people longer to load the codes in their system. And, it's just been a lot of back and forth with that. So there's been a lot of confusion surrounding it, because while it is great for patients, and we're totally on board with that for sure, it's been a bit of a challenge for those of us that provide compression garments and those of us that are licensed Medicare providers, just because we're trying to get the system understood, the process understood. And so what happened at the beginning of the year, actually even at the end of last year, in anticipation of the beginning of the year, patients started calling us and therapists started calling us saying, oh, yay, we're so excited now compression garments are free. And
Yeah.
we have to be very cautious about using those words because nothing's free, first of all. The better way to term that is it is now billable to your Medicare. It's always going to be according to the provisions of that policy. While everyone who has straight Medicare, not a Medicare alternative, but everyone has straight Medicare, has the same benefits. You get 80% coverage by Medicare, and then the 20% is responsible for you or from a supplemental policy or secondary policy. So Medicare covers 80% of these new codes when your deductible is met, when you meet the criteria, when you have the correct diagnosis code, when you have it ordered by a physician. There's a lot of boxes to check to make that a valid and billable code. So back to your question, what's the LTA? The LTA is a great thing for sure. We all know there's, I don't even know the name, the number you probably know, Holly, but we're up at, hundreds of thousands, if not to the millions of people who do suffer.
People living with lymphedema.
Right. Because it can occur really in any part of the body. So it is a great thing for those people who have suffered with that condition, that now Medicare actually recognizes that as a valid medical condition that does require medical care. So that's a really good thing. We're just still trying to figure out how it's all going to work going forward, best practices going forward.
And I think you bring up a really good point. So here's the LTA, we're here, yay! And then it's like, okay, that's why it's such a big deal. It's finally, lymphedema is recognized. It's a chronic, lifelong condition. There's lots of opportunities for treatment and moving forward to thrive with lymphedema. You can check some of our previous chats. But really, if someone had never heard of the Lymphedema Treatment Act, doesn't know how to get their garments covered, and Josh, I feel like this is a lot of what you're working on every day, is providing resource and information. So one of the things that you mentioned, Pam, is you need your prescription. Someone really needs to be diagnosed with lymphedema in order to qualify for lymphedema compression garment coverage. There's all of these details. And so if you remember nothing at all, it's that there's resources out there for you to find, and people do this for you and with you. So, and that's something that you guys also do at Compression Care, right, Josh?
Absolutely. When essentially the patient is going into a therapist, and that therapist is then sending the referral to us, and we are helping the therapist on a daily basis. It's not, their job is not insurance. They don't have to know that. Their job is to treat the patient, and all we are really is a service to that therapist and to that patient to make sure that they get the care that they need, and that care.
Oh no. Okay.
The ultimate care, the therapist can do the treatment, you're doing MLD, you're doing these things, but at the end result is always going to be a garment. And those garments can be expensive, especially if there's multiple body parts involved. And so we facilitate that because we want that care to not only be from a therapist standpoint of doing MLD and doing the things that they need to do to help that patient, but we want them to have a lifetime supply, if you will, of the garment they need to keep their body functioning properly. And that's really what we're doing, is we're just being that resource. And I think that's what makes it so important. So we're a resource not only to the therapist, but also to the patient.
And all of our case managers that do work with compression care, we are all certified fitters, including Joshua, who's our COO. He's a certified compression fitter as well. And we find that to be very, very important, because we can deliver accurate medical information, clinical information, garment recommendations, measuring advice. Joshua and I regularly do Zooms with physical therapists to help them measure a patient. They're in Oklahoma, I'm sitting in Nashville. I can walk them through how to best measure their patient for a Prairie or any other garment that their patient might need. And that's really valuable. I think that we all know what we're doing and what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You bring up another great point, which is what I was going to say in terms of for someone who has questions about their medical condition, whether they have lymphedema or not, those kind of things. There's great resources now, I feel more than ever. So finding a medical professional that you align with, a lot of different databases that you can find that in. We also have an insurance article on our education center that we're constantly updating the links. So even as a patient, if you have Medicare questions, there's a link on the CMS website that does take you to, hey, here's your rights as a patient, here's where you can get additional information, so that you can also get empowered with knowledge and understand who to ask and what to ask, which I think is super cool. I think it also makes a big shift, and Joshua, you sort of touched on this a little bit. What do you feel it means for those folks that are living with lymphedema right now? What does the LTA do for them? And I want to kind of expound a little bit on, you mentioned really quickly, there might be multiple garments or multiple areas that are affected. So what do you feel the LTA does specifically in those cases?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is that it opened up coverage, because up until January 1, these patients were having to come out of pocket for every bit of the cost of the garment. And so, I mean, and especially in the Medicare population, that can be a burden on, what other things they have expense wise. And so, that's really what it did. It opened up the ability for these garments to have some coverage. It may not be at 100% all the time, but at least they're not coming out of pocket with the entire amount of their garment. And yeah, there are multiple body parts that are affected. Throughout. It can be truncal, it can be head and neck, it can be arms, it could be legs. It could just be the lower leg. But it's weird in how it does it, because it is so sporadic, and it doesn't have to follow a rhyme or reason. You can have a patient that has one arm swelling for 15 years, and then suddenly they get on a plane and the other arm swelling, and they don't know why. And so
Right.
the LTA, what it did was just open up that coverage and allow people to get these garments, and not only get the garments, but get an appropriate garment. Because if you have to come out of
Yeah.
pocket, a lot of
Not
times you might
a
be,
garment.
that's exactly right. You might be, well, I can't really afford that one, so I'm going to get this cheaper one, or this one that doesn't quite cover as well, or is not quite as strong, whatever that case may be. And this allows them to get the garment that they actually need and that will benefit them long term.
And one of the questions that we get all the time, and that someone popped in chat, is how many garments are allowed per year? And that is per specific to each code, you guys. So again, this is one of those things that's going to be answered by your DME supplier that you purchase your garments from. They'll have the latest and greatest in how many are allowed in your jurisdiction and for your specific prescription. Am I saying this correctly, Pam
Yeah.
and Joshua?
Yeah.
I feel.
The Medicare has been pretty clear about what they will cover as standard Medicare. But yes, to your point, Holly, there are day garment codes, there are night garment codes, there are wrap codes that actually fall into the day garment code. So again, back to just all of this, the fluidity of this constantly changing world. But I do want to address, just while we're talking about this, for those of you out there who have a Medicare alternative, and what we learn is that not everybody realizes they have a Medicare alternative. Sometimes they think they're signing up for what they think is a Medicare supplement, which actually turns out that they're signing up for something that will replace their Medicare. So right now, that's probably the stickiest part of all of this, is that all the Medicare alternatives, which are required to adopt Medicare codes, they're all covering differently. And that is a real problem right now, because we ourselves can't give anybody if you're a Medicare patient, we can pretty much say okay, this is how it's covered. But if you're Medicare alternative, it's a case by case basis, and that really complicates things and mucks things up, because in some situations, actually in many situations, some of these Medicare alternatives are not even covering the cost of the garment, like what it would cost for a dealer such as ourselves to even obtain the garment. And so, I mean, if that's the case, we're not able to provide a garment that we lose money on. Like, it costs me money to provide that garment, and I don't get paid back enough. That's I would go out of business. Anybody would go out of business if they were providing garments at a loss. So it's just a constantly fluid situation.
That's definitely the feedback that we've been getting anecdotally, and also understanding that there's a physical therapist group, there's retail store groups, there's jurisdiction groups that are having, sometimes daily, weekly, monthly get-togethers to understand what's the most current information that they're getting feedback on for coverage. And I know that everyone we're working with is right on top of how do we make sure that we get the best coverage, that we're working ethically with patients, those kind of things. But what you're hearing, folks, is it is really a case by case basis, and understanding coverage in each situation right now has been specific. One of the things that I just read is, our custom garments covered? There's a whole bunch of codes. Custom is also included in the
Yes.
new coding system. And this kind of brings us full circle back to working with your medical provider, working with your insurance verifier and coordinator, because these are the folks that can navigate this with you and for you.
Holly,
What
I
with
have
Sorry, go ahead, Pam.
I'll interject here, just because I don't know if you plan to go this direction or not, but speaking directly to kind of who can dispense these items now, with the LTA going into effect, because we've had several patients and therapists say, well, can I not just now get the garment directly from my physical therapist, or the therapist saying, can I not just provide the garment for my patient? So in order to bill Medicare for anything, you have to be a licensed Medicare provider. So we are a licensed, what's called a DME, durable medical equipment provider of compression garments. And in order to be a licensed Medicare provider, you have to go through a rigorous accreditation process, as one should, to make sure you are falling in line with all of Medicare's guidelines. So that's a bit of an expensive process. It's a bit of a lengthy process. And so there are some physical therapy clinics out there that are working to get their DME license, and they can do that. A doctor's office can get a DME license, a physical therapy clinic can get a DME license, but it is separate and beyond their ability to be a doctor's office or their ability to be a physical therapy clinic. So it is a separate licensure, costs more money, and you have to get separate coding and national provider identifier numbers and things like that. So that's been a lot of confusion too, as to who can provide the garments. So right now, right now and forever, the only entities allowed to provide and bill Medicare for these garments will be licensed DME providers.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. We did include a link in our insurance article. That's another question that we get a lot in terms of who can supply garments. So there is a link in the insurance article directly to that for those of you that are interested. And I think also what I heard at the top of our talk, Joshua, is just you're also a resource to those physical therapists that really just want to refer a patient to an insurance verifier and coordinator, which you are one.
Yeah, absolutely. And because of the LTA, I think what's happened is on January 1, a massive influx of patients came in and said, "We're ready for our garments now." And all the therapists went, "Oh my gosh!" And they're even the therapists are backed up now, seeing this massive influx of patients. And what's happened is that influx of patients has now that the busyness of it all has pushed over to the dealers as well. And so maintaining speed and accuracy is a very important thing. And while we were set up and doing wonderful in December, a lot of people struggled with January, which is normally kind of I can breathe again moment in the DME world. This January was not. It was, we're growing larger than our biggest December. And so because of that influx, and so not only finding a good resource, but somebody that is still timely and accurate in what they're doing. And we've been able to do that. We were prepared for it going into it, and not to say we're not slow, busy as all get out, because we are, but we've been able to at least stay ahead of it a little bit. And I mean, there's people out there that are a month or two behind in verification of benefits, and we're running about 9 days right now, which is honestly really good for the industry. It's really good for the industry. And is it where we want to be? No. You know what? We'd like to be able to do it every hour. We're sending you back your response to you. But, still we're able to do that. We're able to at least stay on top of it and get these answers back. So not only, answering the questions for the therapist and helping to guide and understand, because it's a new thing for them as well, and so we have to guide them. We have to take good care of the patients, but we have to do it in a timely manner. And so far we're able to do it. I mean, we're going into the end of the first quarter now, and I think that from second quarter to third quarter, it's going to get a little bit easier, and then towards the end of the year, we'll be rocking. Yeah.
Every day. I just got off of Zoom right before this, and I was like, "That's amazing information!" Like every day, I'm getting new information, feeling more confident about how everybody can really benefit, both the patients and the therapists and the DME providers.
Yes.
Yep. One of our questions was, what are you most excited about with the LTA? And I know what my immediate answer is, but how would you answer that question, the two of you?
Well, I think Josh already spoke to it, is that, we have a very large patient population out there. I mean, you can't even believe how large it is, because lymphedema forever really went misdiagnosed, or undiagnosed even. And now we have a better understanding of it. I think the medical profession has a better understanding of it. But, I think what's exciting is that, these patients who have suffered for so long and had to pay out of pocket forever, this is a game changer for them. Also, patients who saved to buy one garment, now the Medicare regulations say 3 of each garment will be covered every 6 months. So that's huge. Now patients get 3 of something they kept 1 of for 5 years. They can get 3 every 6 months. That's a life-changing benefit that really can help control and maintain this condition. Compression garments don't treat it. They don't treat your lymphedema, but they certainly maintain and control it and prevent it from getting worse, as long as you're properly fit with the correct garments. So I'm most excited about, these patients, should ease suffering, I think, in a lot of ways. Ease suffering and financial burden as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. You hit the nail on the head, because I read that there were 58 million Medicare patients in the U.S. And so when you look at 58 million people, if 5% of them have some kind of lymphedema, it's 2.4 million people that are out there that were paying for their own garments, or not paying for their own garments, and just not getting the treatment that they need, like the end result treatment. And it's life-changing for that many people.
In some cases, because they were given the information up front, because as we know, treatment of lymphedema is not enough. You have to wear garments once your treatment is complete in order to maintain the swelling at its lowest state. So what was happening is, physical therapists would give their upfront cost to the patient. Okay, we're going to do this therapy, which ironically was covered. The very expensive therapy for lymphedema was covered by Medicare, but then garments to maintain were not. Now they are, so we're excited. But so a patient would go through, a evaluation for therapy, and the therapist would say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And then at the end of this treatment, you're going to have to buy these garments. And it'll be X amount of dollars. And the patient would then say, I can't do that. So therefore, I'm not going to have treatment at all, which is, a huge problem. Now this situation only worsens itself.
Yeah, and the other side of that is they go through the treatment, don't get the garment, swell back up, and then they're back in treatment, and it's just that constant roller coaster of, reducing down, swelling back up, reducing down, and now we can keep them down. So I mean that it's all a very exciting thing, but it's really exciting because the patients are able to complete that care that they need.
Mm-hmm. And that is twofold for us here at Prairie, is anytime we can educate. So just bringing lymphedema out as a term of regular everyday knowledge. Lymphedema is real. This is a chronic condition. Making sure that people are empowered with that education, because I know that I hadn't heard of lymphedema before coming into Prairie Wear, and certainly hadn't heard of it even our first year of working with oncological patients. And it was the physical therapist who taught me what lymphedema was, and it wasn't even in my awareness and understanding. So I'm excited that lymphedema is becoming a more common word and that people can understand that we have so many people that have been misdiagnosed for 10 years plus. And so to bring some education to patients, but also medical professionals, I'm really
Yeah.
excited about that. And mostly we're excited the same to be able to help people and help them feel better.
Right.
I think that's why we're all here. And I want to say that's why we resonate, the three of us, so much together. And by the way, I just have to say this. These two folks have the most kind, intelligent, and supportive, I will say, spouses. Shout out to Stephen and Jennifer.
Yes.
Just lovely, lovely humans. And so I just want to say this is a full circle of love and support here to help people. I just think that's really phenomenal. And wanted to share that appreciation a lot. And guys, we've had some other questions coming in, but our half an hour is so quickly over. So what I wanted to say in terms of a resource, please DM either Pam or Joshua or both with any questions. You can DM us. You can go your support at prairieware.com. We will always put you in touch with anyone on our circle chats. So reach out there. And just know there's lots of resources out there, and there's amazing humans like Joshua and Pam who want to help you navigate this process, and want to help you get the coverage that you're looking for, so, and that you need. Yeah.
For sure. Well, I
Cool.
definitely appreciate you. Thank you so much for having us on here and letting us do this, because you touted us a lot, but I mean you set this up. You've got that same caring heart, and you're out there working it all the time. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
For sure.
Have a really great rest of your week, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.